second. All right. It looks like I'm live. Maybe. All right. It looks like I'm live. There we go. Does that sound better? I was a little loud there. There we go. Does that sound better? No, it does not. Okay, I'm still very loud. Let me just. uh, Is that better? That sounds good. All right. So I'm live, ready to go. And today I have Hololive OCG. I got four of the decks that I really enjoy playing. So starting off, we have my second favorite actually, that being Louis Kiara. Turn this out of the way. Hot in my room, so I got my fan going. So first off, we have the Oshi card, Takane Louis. So just probably should have done this off screen, just made sure they're all in order, but that's fine. I'll do it here. Let me move these off to the side so that I have enough room. Alright, so I'll leave my Oshi there. Now, what this build is centered around being Takanashi Kiara and Takane Louis is it's centered around a lot around the archive, which if you played any TCG like Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or One Piece, the archive is basically this game's equivalent of the trash from One Piece or the graveyard in Yu-Gi-Oh. So when cards leave the fields or basically just would be discarded, that's where they go. Now, how this deck works is Takane Louis here. Her second has an attack where you can send cards from your hand to the graveyard or to the archive in order to buff your attacks. While the second Kiara over here adds it buffs her attack through cards in your archive, and then she shuffles cards from the archive back into the deck. And that's more or less how this works. Now, funnily enough, my favorite deck actually, being the deck I'm going to show off last, for my Oshi in particular, which if you don't know what an Oshi is, in idol culture, whoever is your favorite among the idols is your Oshi. So the last deck I'm going to show off is the deck where they actually released my Oshi, and I almost immediately built the deck, but my bad. This is taking a bit, but just trying to get these organized, make it a little bit easier to show off. Fortunately, I will have to do this for all of the other decks as well, just because they've been played recently, so they're not going to be in order. There we go. Alright, so starting off, of course, we'll start off with Kiara. Now, how debuts work in this game is there's typically going to be two debuts. One's going to be a weaker one, such like this one, but it will also have an effect that you can include any number of them as you want in your deck. So you could run 6, you could run 10. So for this one, I have her at 3. And she has the attack Kikariki. It's 20, and if you archive a card from hand, it gains an additional 20. Now, if you've ever played Pokemon, debuts are a lot like that, where they are a lot like basics in Pokemon. So they're the ones you can play straight to the field, and you can have a maximum of 6 here as well. Next up, we have the second debut Takanashi Kiara. Now, the other debuts typically are a bit stronger and will oftentimes have a collab effect. Which, to explain that, you have a center Holomem zone, your Oshi off to this side, and off to the other side you have a collab zone. It's empty at the beginning, but you can move cards from your backstage, which, again, tie into Pokemon, your bench essentially. You can collab them by sending the top card of your deck to something called Holo Power. And when you collab with these cards, you can then use their effect. Which, as you can see, is if your center Holomem has the bird hashtag, you can archive one card from your hand, and you basically search your deck for a mascot. Now, to explain mascots, they're these. So I have KFP here and Kotori. Kotori is a mascot card, which means it can be equipped to any card, but has a special effect if it's equipped to Takanashi Kiara herself. Or on the other hand, Ganmo here is another mascot, but his special effect comes in if he's equipped to a Takane Lui. Fans, on the other hand, have only their base effect, but they can only be equipped to their respective Holomem. So basically, use her effect by collabing, and then you send a card to the archive to either search a Kotori or a Ganmo, whichever one you need. Alright. Next up, we have our firsts. Now, again, just like Pokemon, other than the first turn you played the card, you can do something called Bloom, which is this game's version of Evolution. So, in this deck, I have 2 examples of first for Takanashi Kiara. The first one, this one is, some would say the weaker one. She has stronger attacks. And, of course, both of them have higher health than their original. Now, in this game, you have a set amount of life, which is shown here, on the bottom corner of the card. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Right here. If your characters, if your Holomems are taken out, you have to take life. If your life hits 0, you lose the game. That is the main way that you're meant to win the game. So that's why HP on your characters is important. So, she has 2 attacks. One requires 1 red cheer, which I can explain that too. But it requires 1 red cheer, and that's basically your energy in Pokemon, and you are guaranteed 1 cheer per turn, and there are ways to cheat out more cheer than just the 1. But for 1 cheer, it deals 50 damage, which is, considering this first is 120 HP, 50 damage is not bad. And her second attack requires 2 red cheer. It deals only 40 damage, but it also has an effect that you can archive a Holomem stacked to this Holomem and deal 40 special damage to your opponent's collab. So to explain that is, let's say this turn, you have this Kiara on field. with 2 cheer. You bloom her into her, and then use Kneel Before Me. You can then send this card to the archive in order to deal the 40 special damage, which is basically this game's version of effect damage, like from Yu-Gi-Oh! So it deals less base damage than the lower cost card, but deals 80 total damage for that one time. And you would hope by the time that after you archive that character, you would get your second out, and I will show her off in just a little bit. But next up, we have the other first Takanashi Kiara. 110, so 10 less HP than the prior one, but she also has a bloom effect, which to explain that, the let's say the action of stacking these cards on top of each other to make her stronger is called blooming. So this is a once per, it's basically an on-play effect. When you bloom her, you get this effect. And what it does is you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 Holomem. If there's no Holomems, you can't add any, and the rest are sent to the archive. So either 2 or 3 cards are sent to the archive, which again, that will make sense when we go over the second Kiara. And of course, she has 1 attack. Now, this gray circle, with the circle inside, means it requires generic Dawn. So it can be any color of cheer, not Dawn, my bad. But it requires any color of cheer. So if I had a green cheer equipped to her, she could still use this attack. And it has no effect and deals 40, but the more important part is not even the searching on her bloom effect, but if you get 3 Holomem and archive 2 of them, that's very helpful towards your end game in this deck. Next up, since I'm a horrible person and like causing you guys suspense, I'll go over Kotori next. And make you wait longer for the second Takanashi Kiara, because Kotori is important to this. Now, for the first part, this top effect can be activated no matter who he's on. So if he's on Takane Louis, it will still activate this effect, which is that every attack my opponent does, it takes 10 less damage. And it doesn't work on special damage dealt to the back row, which is a prevalent thing. But so if they're in the center or collab zones, they take 10 less damage on every attack. Next up, we have the effect that if it's attached to Takanashi Kiara specifically, when that character is bloomed, whenever that character blooms, so if it goes from a debut to a first or a first to a second, you get to draw a card. Now, it does have a third effect, but this one's just a standard effect for mascots that only 1 mascot can be attached to each of your Holomems. So if I have a Ganmo attached to a Takane Louis or a Kiara, I cannot then attach either another Ganmo or a Kotori to that very same card. There is a way to circumvent this in a deck for Fubuki, Shirogane Fubuki. But in most cases, your Holomem are limited to 1 mascot. In difference to mascots, you can have as many fans, like you can have 4 fans of the same fan on 1 character, but they can only be attached to the character who is named. So KFP can only be attached to a Takanashi Kiara, and when you do, you can archive a card from deck or from your hand to draw a card from the deck. So This deck is heavily reliant on draw power because you want to get as many of these cards into the archive, aka the graveyard, as quickly as possible. And now, finally, we will go over why that is. When we talk about the second Takanashi Kiara and one of the two bosses of this deck. 200 HP, that's pretty good, pretty good. A 2 cheer attack that deals 70 damage with no base effect. Now, the box next to that actually means that it deals an additional 50 damage to green cards. Now, you may see that they have red coloration and a symbol up there. That is the symbol for red. This one is the symbol for green. And it just adds a little bit of a counter mechanic. Not all of red cards deal bonus damage to green, like you may see with this second Takane Lui. She actually deals bonus damage to yellow. Unfortunately, yellow does not yet exist in the game. We have all of the other colors except for yellow. But, moving on, we have the attack of that answers the question to what this deck's purpose is. 80 damage plus 50 if it's against a green. And this art, so that's what they're called in this game. You have a performance phase where you perform the arts. And that's how you attack in this game, quote unquote. Now, this art gains plus 10 for each holomem in your archive. And then you return 6 from your archive to the deck and shuffle it. So, to explain that, let's say all of these... Let's say I'm not going up against a green specifically, and all of these debuts are in my archive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means this would do 80 plus 70 because of a 7 additional damage, and then I could take all 6 of these and shuffle them back into the deck. So that's how Takanashi Kiara works, where basically the more characters you have in the archive, the more damage she deals, and then she deals less damage the next time because she shuffles those characters back into the deck. So that's really why this deck is really self-destructive, actually. You're throwing a lot of cards into the archive for the sole purpose of shuffling them back in to buff your Takanashi Kiara. Next up, we have the core for Takane Lui. And first off, I'm going to be talking about Ganmo. Now again, Ganmo is a mascot, which means he can be attached to any character, but gains a special effect if he's attached to Takane Lui. And with Ganmo's effect, you want to be doing that. Because his base effect is this holomem. The holomem this mascot is attached to gets arts plus 10. So whenever they perform one of their arts, it deals an additional 10 damage. However, if it's equipped to a Takane Lui, and that holomem in the center position uses an art, you get to draw a card. So specifically, what your board wants to look like is you want Takane Lui in your center, and then you would want at least one Kiara on your backstage. You want to collab with the Kiara. You use this art. It allows you to draw a card. That's more resources that you can then try and get into your archive. And then you use the resources that Takane Lui puts into your archive for Takanashi Kiara's effect. Is how this works. But this is just more draw power for the deck, which... Honestly, this deck does have a lot of draw power, with a lot of the Takanashi Kiaras being able to draw cards by archiving cards, which help their game plan. The Kotori allowing you to draw cards whenever you bloom the equipped Kiara, or the Kiara it's equipped to. And now Ganmo, drawing cards every time you attack with your center Takane Lui specifically. Next up, we have debut Takane Lui, 100 HP, debut, red. And honestly, talking about her attack makes me bring up one of my favorite parts about this game, honestly. Other than the fact that they outright refuse to change the art on this game, the other thing I love is the puns. I like puns, so the wordplay here on the attack is "Did I leave you waiting?" Which I'm not laughing now, but I find it hilarious. I'm yes, my sense of humor is that shot. But yeah, I find that hilarious. That her attack is a pun based around her name. But yep, it just deals a base 30 damage. But again, if she's your center and God Mode's equipped, this attack will actually do 40 damage for one cheer and draw you a card, which is really good. It relies on you having God Mode, but again, that's not really hard to do. Next up, we have the other Takane Louis. This one, 60 HP, so not really high there, but it's okay. This one, you're more here for her collab effect, and honestly, your best bet is to collab with her and then immediately bloom her into a stronger form. But she does have her collab effect, Appointment, which deals 10 special damage to your opponent's collab Holomem, which plays more into that concept that you want her there on your second turn. You collab with her, deal damage to your opponent's collabed Holomem, and then you bloom her into one of the firsts to deal some more damage and hopefully not get one shot, because that is definitely something that this Takane Louis is capable of, is because 60 damage is not hard to do in this game. Also, is my mic too loud? Let's turn that down a little bit. All right, let me test this out real quick. Let me test this out. Let me turn it up. Okay, okay. All right, let's see how that is. That sounds good. All right, all right. Figured that out. I was a bit too loud there though. And hey, if anyone hears me being too loud, please feel free to chime in. Let me know. All right. And next one, our next attack though is I'll lure you in with wings darker than black. I love these names. That one's is a bit edgy, but I still love it. And it deals 20 base damage, as well as dealing 10 special damage to your opponent's collab Holomem. Now that is only if your opponent has a collab Holomem, which is not a guarantee, but still. So this is actually a situation where the one that you can have an unlimited number of in the deck is, I would say, equal to, if not a little bit stronger than the collab effect one. However, the main thing with Takane Louis is her second, or both of these characters is their seconds. There's some decks where you can definitely get away with playing more so for your early game, but this is definitely not one of them. You want to get a decent background in your archive, and just so you can just machine gun out damage. No problem. Next up, we have the first Takane Louis, our first one, 130 HP, not too bad, not too shabby. We got two attacks. Welcome to the party, 30 damage, no effect, not great, but not the worst. It's the same amount of damage as the debut, but then again, what you're looking here for is her second attack, which is Louis' Party. And this deals for 2 cheer, it deals a base of 50 damage. And you can archive one card from your hand and reveal a first Holomem other than a buzz from your deck and add it to hand. Now, what you want to do with this is add either one of your other Takane Louis, or in a lot of cases, the better option would be your Searching First Kiara. So you use that, and then on your next turn, you can bloom into that first Kiara, search for more, throw more cards into your archive, and really just plays well into that cycling. Now, this one actually also has a benefit, and a lot of the Louis cards do, but if you would archive cards, female commanding officers are first, and Hollow Power is X, which this is the first case of this being in the game, which I really like, especially since this is from the first set. So they had some really interesting cards even that early on in the game, which I love. But the basic rundown of this effect is if you would archive a card by your red Hollow Mem's ability, you can archive one Hollow Power instead. Now, the Hollow Power X means that this can archive basically however many you would be throwing away from hand, you can archive that many instead. So, and that's important. That's more important with the second Louis. However, again, if you would be archiving a card through her effect, let's say you don't have a Hollow Mem in hand that you want to archive, take a gamble with your Hollow Power, archiving that to get her effect as well. So that really plays into this deck, and her effect can also target the cards that are archiving Hollow Power for, or archiving cards from hand for Kiara as well. So that's just a really good effect, and as long as you have Hollow Power, which again, you want to be gathering Hollow Power once a turn by collabing. Even if it's dangerous, having that Hollow Power is important, especially in this deck, because let's say you're sending a Sure Sacrifice up. That's giving you one free cheer, one free body, and a minimum of one free body in the archive, and it's giving you the Hollow Power that you can sacrifice for female commanding officer's effect. But next up, we have our second first Takane Louis, 100 HP. That's not too good. That's a little low. But her bloom effect makes it worth it. So it's all thanks to you guys. When bloomed from debut, you can archive one card from hand and draw 2 cards from deck. And again, female commanding officer can use its effect on that as well. So basically it's a -1 to draw 2. And again, minusing 1 is actually a benefit in this deck as well. So not too bad. Her attack isn't that great. 1 cheer for 40 damage. It's not bad, but it's not great either. In all reality, you bloom her, and then you more or less want to keep her on the back stage, because that bloom effect is really what's important here. Next up, we have the second Takane Louise. Finally, the second boss of the deck. And she's got 190 HP, so 1 less from Kiara, which is kind of unfortunate, especially because Kiara is the one with the tanky mascot that gives her -10 damage on every attack she would take. But first off, her bloom effect. Now, this is good in more of a Takane Louis themed builds. Her bloom effect isn't that great in this deck unless you want to use it for her for her attack, which is to return up to 2, so 1 or 2, Hollow Mem with Hollow X. So in this deck, she can only target Takane Louis in archive with this, because the hashtags are down here. So she has Hollow X, Bird, and Alcohol, which actually, interesting idea. I might be able to run some Alcohol in this deck. In set 2, they released a card called Hollow Sparkling. And it's basically a sparkling champagne. And it gives bonus damage to all characters and deals bonus damage to that character if they don't have the alcohol tag, which she has the alcohol tag, so that means that, yeah, she would be able to benefit from this pretty well. But her main attack, and the reason why she's one of the bosses of this deck, Hawkrave. Um, it deals 60 base damage and deals 50 bonus damage against yellow, which again, yellow is not yet in the game in English. In set 1, they only released the first 4 colors, that being red, blue, green, and white. In set 2, they released purple, and I don't know if set 3 is going to release yellow or if that might be later on down the line, but I'd be able to check that by looking at what the Japanese release did. So, I'd definitely be able to look at that. But, on the other hand, its effect is you can archive 1 to 5 cards from your hand, deal 20 special damage for each archived card to your opponent's center or collab Hololive. Now, one thing to take note of. This is 1 to 5 cards, and it deals 20 special damage for each. I would need to look up the ruling on this, but I believe you can alternate those. Like, you can deal 40 to center and 60 to their collab Hololive. But again, I would need to look up the ruling on that. But that is Takane Lui, and again, that's why this X is important here, because that X means that she can use up to 5 Holo Power in order to buff Takane Lui's Hawkrave. So that's most of the deck. Now we do have 2 cards that are out of archetype. Honestly, I usually have a bit more than that, but I haven't updated this deck in a while. I might go through and do that, just for some of the newer cards. And for these 2, we have 1 copy each of Hosho Marin and Mori Calliope. Now, these are spots. Now, for spots, they work like debuts, except they all have the effect that this character cannot bloom. So if I play this Mori Calliope, I cannot put a first Mori Calliope onto this one, because Mori Calliope is a deck now, and Hosho Marin is as well. But so the spots typically have somewhat weak attacks. Most of them are 1 sheer for a set number damage. Most of them are 10, but Mori Calliope deals 30 actually, which is neat. She is death, so makes sense that she would deal more damage. Now, Hosho Marin's effect is Edinburgh Castle. And you can roll a dice, and if it's odd, you exchange your opponent's center Hololive with 1 back Hololive. Now, one interesting part about that is, since it does not say non-rested back Hololive, you can actually it unrests the character, but pulls it to the center Hololive stage or area. So, take a character that you weakened last turn, pull it up to the center, and finish the job. Is, I would say, probably one of the most efficient uses. However, I have also been known to use her to pull another spot to the front. And the reason why is Baton Pass. You'll see down here, Baton Pass with a circle. I haven't seen a card that doesn't have just generic for Baton Passing, but basically you remove that much cheer from this character, and you can actually retreat her and put up another character that is not rested. So basically, you take this character that has a weak 10 damage attack, lowish health, and move her to the front, and then your opponent has to use a cheer to move that character back to the backstage, and the character they want on front up front. So that's another good use for those. Next up, we have the collab effect of Mori Calliope, that being Soul Harvest. And it allows you to return 1 to 3 cheer from your archive to the cheer deck. So let's say your opponent killed your boss and you're running out of cheer. You can then collab with her, 1 to 3 of it goes back, and then you have 3 more turns minimum of cycling that cheer back onto your characters. Here we go. Now, this is the current build of my Takane Lui. Again, next time I show it off, it might be different just because I haven't updated it in a while. And as I said, there's cards that came in set 2 that might actually be useful for this. So this deck might end up changing, which is exciting. It's always good to update your older decks. Not really, not just build them then forget about them. That's always been one of my biggest interests in TCGs. Is it's less about playing the game and more just about coming up with strategies, stuff like that. Hence why all of my decks in Master Duel are weird, because I like playing weird decks. But next up, we have Murasaki Shion. There we go, in frame. Now, apologies, I'm going to have to do the whole thing where I organize this deck once again. There we go. I will try to be quick this time. Quicker. Alright. Unfortunately, there might be one card that causes me some trouble. There's one card that looks very similar to another, and it's this wand here. There's another card that looks a lot like it, I'm pretty sure. And I'm trying not to mix the two up. Okay. Also, doing this with gloves is not easy. Okay, that's not as hard as I thought it would be. Yep, this is the other. Well, it's not even the wand. It's the same wand, just different orientation. Now, this one is actually a pure deck, being comprised only, other than spots, of course. But other than spots, this is comprised of only Murasaki Shion. And this one actually contains 3 firsts. And a larger number of debuts. Specifically, the card that you can have more than 4 of. And it also has more spots on account of it being, again, a single Holomem deck. I believe there is a Holomem that you can run Shion with, but I'm actually really liking the pure build. See, 5 right there, and I believe there should be 1 more. I'm really liking the 10 debut, like running 10 debuts. Just because it gives you a little bit of consistency. But this one definitely is a bit first heavy. There we go. There's my 6th. Alright. Now, starting off, this is a deck focused around events and items and fans. Specifically, not this one, but you'll see on the Magic Dresser, it actually has a tag, which isn't actually common. Believe it or not. I don't think so, at least. But her deck plays around magics. Now, you'll see that Shioko does not have a tag. No magic. Shioko is a fan, which means you can equip any number of these to your Murasaki Shions. And honestly, there's a good reason it does not have magic, because that would be overpowered. Because its effect is it gives bonus damage, and you can use it as basically a free I'm not taking damage card. So let's say your opponent's about to knock out your Murasaki Shion. You can archive this instead to not take the damage. And remember, you can have any number attached to Murasaki Shion as well. So if you have all 4 of these equipped to her, that is plus 40 damage every time that Shion attacks. So that's pretty good. Next up, we have an event. Magic Dresser. Now this one does have the magic tag, and that will come up later. Now this one requires you to archive a hollow power, but if you do, you can send a purple cheer from your archive to a Murasaki Shion. And only one magic event can be used per turn. Now, funnily enough, the reason that line is in the let's see actually. Oh wait. Or wait. Oh, okay. So the reason that this is yeah, it is on the other event with magic, but the reason that this is in the text line is there is a limited event which will have a red box above the name. This does not interfere with that. You can play this and a limited, but you can't play, for instance, you can't play Magic Dresser and then also play the next card I'm going to show you, that being Explosion Magic. Once again, as you can see, it has the event only one of your events with magic can be used per turn. Now, what this one does is it deals 20 special damage to your opponent's center or collab holomem, but it does not take your opponent's life if that holomem is KO'd. So you want to use this more as a weakening, or if you think you can go for a game by basically knocking out all of your opponent's cards, which is, if they don't have any cards on their stage, they lose immediately. So that is another way you can do that. But yeah, so either to weaken or to execute without actually lowering your opponent's life. That's the that's the that's that. All right, next up we have a tool. Now, a tool works like a fan or mascot where it equips to the character. And, of course, it buffs her attack by +10. That's a common theme in this deck, is she deals a lot of damage and then has a card that negates damage, she's taking. So that's pretty good. And if it's attached to a first or greater Murasaki Shion, your Oshis, and it has to be a Murasaki Shion in the center zone, it changes the 1 per turn to a 2 per turn for your Oshi skill, Hey. Now, this also has the effect that only one tool can be attached to each of your Hollomen. So you can't attach 2 of them to get arts +20 again. That's just with your fan. Now, to explain that, but to explain that second effect, you have once per turn Oshi skill, Hey. Now, the effect is when your Murasaki Shion ability rolls a dice, roll the dice once. You can re-roll a dice, basically. So if you use that effect by archiving 1 hollow power, and you still don't get the outcome you want, Murasaki Shion's magic wand here allows you to use it again to try and roll the dice again. Or, if you get the outcome you want, and your second Murasaki Shion also has a dice roll effect, like the Murasaki and the collab, or not even one of them, but let's see. Oh, yeah. So, you can also use it for Magical Girl Shion. Actually, no, you can't. No, you can't. Alright, it has to be a Murasaki Shion. But if you have a Murasaki Shion in your at center and collab zone, you can use that effect to roll the dice, or you can use it twice to roll that dice on both. Alright, moving on. We got our debuts. Now again, this is a ratio I actually really like, is 6 of the unlimited debuts and 4 of the limited debuts with the collab effects. But for the first one, 130 HP, pretty tanky for a debut. And one generic cheer, so any color cheer for 20 damage. And again, you can have an infinite number of them. But yeah, so she's pretty tanky. The attack isn't all that great, but again, she's pretty good for someone you're just trying to get into a first anyways, so... And again, 130 HP is pretty good for a debut. Next up, we have the other debut, and only 50 HP, so a real glass cannon here. But she does have a really good collab effect, where if you roll a dice and it's 4 or greater, reveal a card with magic from your deck and add it to hand. Then you shuffle the deck. Now, for instance, Magic Wand, these 3 cards all have the magic hashtag. So it basically means search for one of these 3 on collab if you roll a 4 or higher. And her attack is 1 purple specific cheer, which isn't hard because all your cheer in this deck are purple, for 30 damage. So a good one, but a really good glass cannon, so to speak. Alright, let's do this first. Now, there usually is like 2 or 3 firsts. Normally, I don't include them in the deck just because the third one is not that good, so I'm going to start off with that one, actually. They tend to be tankier, like at a 170 HP, pretty tanky. But they have pretty generic attacks. They deal a decent amount of damage, but again, not having the effects is what more so hurts them. Because and whatever game you're playing, cards with effects are going to be better than cards without, in most cases. But again, 2 generic attacks. One is a 1 cheer with 30 damage, and the other is a 2 cheer with 60 damage. So really simple to explain, but not really the greatest pull. But if you need something that you can bloom, because again, 50 HP, and if you only have her, she's better than letting your 50 HP Murasaki Shion die. Or get sent to the archive. They don't die in this game, I guess. They get outplayed, outperformed. Next up, we have another first Murasaki Shion. This one with 130 HP. So again, these 2 are going to be less tanky than this one. But they have bloom effects. Alright. And she adds one of your cards with magic from the archive to the hand by archiving 1 card from your hand. So basically it's, let's say I have 2 copies of Spot Murasaki Shion in hand. I send her to the archive to get back my magic wand, or maybe explosion magic. So that's what that does. But it is only an on play, so you can't activate this more than once, other than the turn, or other than when you bloom this card. So if you don't have cards in hand when you bloom this one, the effect kind of becomes null, which is sad because that just makes this card not very good. But if you have the card to throw away to get one of your magics back, that's pretty good effect. Next up, we have her attack. Change the cheer. 2 for 30 damage, and you can roll a dice if it's a 5 or greater. So basically, when they say a dice, they actually have it specified in the rules that the only dice usable for this game are a d6. So you roll a dice, it's 5 or greater, so basically in this case, 5 or 6. You can retach one of your opponent's cheers on stage to another one of your opponent's holomem. So let's say, for instance, your opponent has these 2 on board. This one has a cheer and this one has 2 cheer. You can then roll a dice, and if it's 5 or 6, take 1 cheer from her and put it onto her. Now that's a useless cheer because she only requires one cheer. And she has become useless because you need 3 cheer to use her attack. And she is now down to 1 cheer, which means it's going to take a minimum of 2 turns, or a maximum of 2 turns, to get back up there. And if I roll another 5 or 6, it's just going to keep happening. So that's pretty good. Um, again, you have to be careful when you play her, and her attack really isn't good enough to warrant whiffing on the bloom effect. Next up, we have the other first Murasaki Shion with a bloom effect, also having 130 HP, and she is my OBS dying. Hello? Hello? What? Ah, my phone appears to have died. That is unfortunate. Well, I might have to cancel. I might have to stop stream for a bit. I will be back in a bit. I'll restart stream under the same name once my phone charges up a bit. Sorry about that, and I will be back later today.